anyone needs one. Breathing that in, right? A little boy in Africa that can share a principle, live a principle, and then live on through that principle and meet us right here, even though it was a time ago in a place far away. That's consciousness for you. So welcome to a week of consciousness. A week where we celebrate our daily practice of doing all we can, where we are, with what we have. This week is filled with it. It's filled with prayer, an invitation for consciousness, an invitation for celebration, and celebrating and supporting this vibrant center we call Unity Village Chapel that has been here for over 90 years. It started with people wanting to study together, wanting to read together, wanting to support each other, wanting to tether themselves to the principles ever more tightly by joining together. This week is an invitation. It's about a collective energy emerging. And even our series starting at the end of this week is significant because it's the time of coming together in a collective consciousness. We do a lot of time that's about our own prayer work or our own lives and our own family. Well, we're entering this space and this beautiful sacred practice of really consciously birthing that out and expressing this consciousness that we know to more than just our community and more than just ourselves. That's one of the invitations for Campaign for Consciousness. Campaign for Consciousness starts Monday, and it's 40 days. It's a 40-day invitation to hold a vision for spiritual social action, and knowing that when we join together in mind and hold an affirmation, hold a vision, hold a statement, that is the first step of spiritual social action. That in fact, when we create a place, when we birth it in consciousness, we birth it in matter, and we birth it in action. But we must first be rooted and grounded in the consciousness. Otherwise, that birthing can go haywire, right? Otherwise, it's not centered and rooted and grounded. So this is an invitation. I learned this last couple of weeks how to use those. Well, I knew how to use them, but I figured out a new way of using my Sky Drives. Have you heard of these Sky Drives, right? So if you have Gmail or Hotmail or whatever it is, you probably have a free access to a drive that's hosted in the sky. And you can save your files up there, which can make it really nice because wherever you go, you can pull them down. So you don't have to have anything with you. Well, you have to have a device, but it doesn't have to be the device they're on. In fact, it makes all your stuff non-local. Is that pretty cool? Is that pretty metaphysical? So anyway, I was explaining to someone that, we're going to start using these drives, and I couldn't remember the word for it, and I was trying to explain how you have to set it up, and it will take what you have here and put it there, and vice versa. And I was trying to think of the word, and I said, it harmonizes the files. It harmonizes the file. The word is sync. It syncs the files. But when you get a little too much unity in your head, you're talking about computers and you're telling people we need to harmonize the files. But that really is what this time and this collective consciousness is about, is it not? It's about harmonizing the files. It's about taking the files that I think is this mind, that I think belong to this being, and harmonizing them, syncing them with the great cosmic consciousness, the great mind, the unlimited, that is really my true nature, that is really my divine birthright, but that sometimes I forget that I am non-local, and I start thinking, and I start creating, and I start separating myself in consciousness in this little separate being that I call my mind. But if I can remember in an instant that I am a part of a greater whole, that there is in fact a beautiful fluid interconnectedness of all intelligence, all life, and I am part of that, then I remember my call and my charge to sync or to harmonize. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." Do you believe that here at Unity Village Chapel, we are part of a greater expression and a greater gift for the unity movement? Do you believe that there is something that is here that is ours to do? Do you believe that we're a flagship ministry? So what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Because we don't want to let the celebration of 90 years go by without asking ourselves as individuals. And why does it matter that we ask ourselves as individuals? Because a church is nothing, a spiritual community is nothing but the individuals that co-create it and recreate it every day and every time they come together, right? So have you asked yourself, have I asked myself, what does this look like? What does this mean to be a flagship? To be at the center or the hub of the movement? Does it mean a mega church? Does it mean filling the seats every Sunday? Does it mean a place where hearts are inspired and lives are transformed? Does it mean a place where spiritual living and abundant living and growth and consciousness are expanding constantly? What is your vision? Are we to be leading? Are we to be on the cutting edge? Are we there yet? I have an idea on how we're going to get there. And it's not based on filling seats, and it's not based on a bunch of marketing. It's based on the good old unity principle of consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. And tethering ourselves as individuals and as a collective to the consciousness that births, because that's how it started. That's how it was founded. That's how we actually ended up here. We ended up here, each one of us, because there is a mighty magnet in consciousness that draws to it like minds. So if we're ready to birth and we're ready to continue our evolution and our expression as a flagship, it's going to come from consciousness. The more we as individuals and sharing together as a collective come together to demonstrate the principles, the more magnetic we are. And the more other like-minded people that know those principles and know the power of that syncing, the power of co-creating, the more they come and share, the more healing happens, the more dancing and delight happens, the more connections happen, and the more vibrant and vibrantly alive we feel and we become. We have in the midst of us masters, master teachers, master prayers. We are at a place where 24 hours a day there is prayer happening, there is meditation happening. We're at a place where everyone practices and strives to practice these principles. When the mind, though, becomes disconnected in that knowing that we can tune in and tune up constantly, we can get distracted with lower level conversations, though, can't we? Right? And when we get distracted with those lower level conversations, then they pull in our energies, because what we focus on increases and what we focus on multiplies. And that's why we're here together, is to remind each other to practice and to share our collective consciousness and not just grow as individuals, but grow as a collective energy so that we can be present for the greater good of all of humanity. So we can be here for another 90 years. And so that we can presence what spiritual community looks like in the future. Because even though a lot of people say church is going nowhere and it's dissolving and disappearing, that may be true for the systems and the structures of church, but I don't think it will ever be true for the need for a powerful spiritual community. It's a whole nother vision of what family means and a whole nother vision of what ministry means when you walk into a sacred space and you feel it different in the air because someone has blessed the seat that you're sitting on, not knowing what you have going in your chaos mind or your pain body, not even having any idea, but standing there in a chair or even on the way driving here, singing a song and saying a blessing that everyone that comes may find exactly what they need. May find that they're home, may see through a hug or a handshake or the eyes or the songs that they are whole and holy and loved and beloved and worth it and worthy and beautiful, no matter where they are or what they have going on. And that in that moment of recognition, even a little boy in Africa with an HIV diagnosis in the time that it's such an awful thing, right, can stand proud and share and teach. Teach from that space and from that experience. Teach beauty. Teach Christ consciousness. This consciousness that we're talking about usurps any other type of power. Developing this consciousness and focusing on it gets us farther than any education will ever get us, gets us farther than any full bank account could get us. Do we believe that's true? Yes. If that's true, then we get to give ourselves the gift of giving as much attention and awareness and commitment to that beautiful aspect of our life than to all of the others combined. And that's why we're here. Martin Luther King reminds us, without dependence on God or the great good, our efforts turn to ashes and our sunrises into darkness. Unless His Spirit pervades our lives, we find only what G.K. Chesterton called cures that don't cure, blessings that don't bless, and solutions that don't solve. Better to have a consciousness that sinks in the infinite. In Luke 12, it says, "To whom much is given, much is required." So if we're here in unity, we're probably here because we know these principles and we know these laws. We've demonstrated these truths, like Charles Fillmore said, don't just trust me, try it on and prove it. And that's probably why we're here. So what is our part? If we know that, and we know that there is much more required, what is our part? This week is about prayer, and this week is about consciousness. And it's about the good vibration of consciousness. But let's talk first about something that doesn't sink the drive. Have you ever found yourself saying, whether it's in a collective or alone, I need more money, I need a better job, we need a better world, I need, or I want, in prayer or just in conversation? Have we all found ourselves there? Okay, so this is one of the things that I think, and I try to teach. If I say, I need more friends, or I need more time, it's an affirmative universe. The infinite, that God mind, this universe speaks in a grand yes. Yes. So if I say, I need more time, is it time that I'm going to get, or is it an increase in the need for time? Because if it's just a great big yes, and I say, I need more money, then what might I get? More reasons to need money. More reasons to need time. More reasons to need a better job. More reasons to need a better friend, or, right, fill in the blank. Studying spiritual principles takes an intense amount of self-reflection and an intense amount of self-awareness. It's like we all become our own wordsmiths and mindsmiths to say, what's going on? What am I thinking with here? And when we get those aha moments, to tag them and to watch them and to go, let me pay attention to that one. Let me shift it. Let me turn it around. We live in an affirmative universe. Charles Fillmore says the law of attraction is this: the law that all conditions and circumstances in affairs and body are attracted to us according to the thoughts we hold steadily in consciousness. He also says, unless God is known as the source of all supply, men, women, people look to the material world for support. This violates the law and breaks the connection with the one source of all good. I would add that it breaks the conscious connection. The connection's never broken, but it breaks the experience of the connection. It makes it so we don't sink. So if we are to check into our consciousness, then what would we say instead of, I need? We would recognize, I don't want to have more needs, so let me not talk about what I need more of. Let me talk about the having and the state of consciousness that has. Because if I am to sink and I am to go to spirit as the source, if I've actually gone to the spirit as source, I couldn't have a need when I get there. If I've actually gone to spirit as source, I couldn't have a need when I get there. Otherwise, that's not where I went. Right? It's not where I went. I may have gone somewhere. I may have danced with my pain body. I may have, whatever, done a little jig with my little sad, helpless self. But I didn't go to source. Because if I went to source and I got there, I would recognize that in the midst of there in consciousness, there wasn't a need. And holding that practice, holding steadily in consciousness, God thoughts and God thinking, God mind, that divine realm, holding that steadily in consciousness, knowing it as source, is like a great download. Prayer then becomes the conditioner of the conscious and the subconscious mind. We've been practicing for this kirtan coming up this week on Tuesday night, right? And it's been just hilarious because every time I run into the kirtan practicer, I hear these words, these chants about the divine in you. What's the song? Lives inside of me. The one I love that lives inside of me, lives inside of you. Therefore, I lean as close to you as I can. All week long, when I'm walking around in and out, because the one I love lives inside of you, I'll be as close to you as I can. And you know what it does? It rearranges the mind. Like it's not a walk in the door, oh, I got all this stuff here. It's because the one I love lives inside of you. Imagine if we were holding that steadily in mind. I was thinking I got to really get a present for Ross Campbell because it's been great. It's like this chanting of devotion, this chanting of the divine constantly as this radio broadcast in the mind. But we know when we practice these affirmations that that's what it's about, right? And once it sinks into the mind on that level, it starts making sense on the other level. And if that's too ethereal to think about this. When you're looking to get a new car, and maybe you want to get one that not a lot of people have, right? You pick one, you think it's all fun and schwanky and fancy, and you pick the color and this and that, and you haven't seen it a lot. But the second you purchase it and you drive it off the lot, what do you see all over? My beautiful car in that unique orange color that was so special. You see it all the time, right? That's the same thing with that conditioner of the mind, the prayer consciousness. Is that when we repeat it, when we know it, when we actually go to the source and we bring it back and we swim in it, it's like we bought it. It's like we purchased it. It's like we went out and got that car and all of a sudden we see it all over. And even that shifts the consciousness and shifts the experience of needing to having. of wishing for to recognizing, to seeing where it's present and activating that principle and that law that when I focus on it, it expands. But if I don't go get it, I might not recognize it, even if it's driving by. Prayer is like a conditioner. Can we get that God mind? Charles Fillmore, again, said, holding it steadily in consciousness. Albert Einstein said, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get the reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. How cool is that Albert Einstein said that? I'll share it again. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get the reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. He didn't put in there, this is not religion, but you see where it's going. It's not just a spiritual idea. It's the operative force in the universe. So what is our charge? Since we know it, we practice it. What is our calling and our responsibility as a collective and as a community? To whom much is given, much is required. I believe that it's our duty to notice and to use the truths we know, but together as well for the greater good. And that's where Campaign for Consciousness came from. I'm going to share with you the beginning of the campaign, the first statement. And this statement is a simple invitation. It's a simple and a free invitation. It's something that anyone can do anywhere at any time, no matter what they have or don't have, no matter who they are or who they're not. It's at the most basic level, remembering our most powerful standing is standing together. Not with our circumstances, not with our situations, but with our power of power, with our minds. It starts with this, and you have it in your bulletin, or you have it near your bulletin, or if you don't, you can raise your hand and the ushers will bring you one. We believe in the evolutionary pull of our progressive universe. That's how it starts. We believe in the evolutionary pull of our progressive universe. Well, that evolutionary pull is that aspect that Charles Fillmore talked about as being the Christ consciousness, the Buddha mind. You can talk about it as being that enlightened consciousness, but it is that pull of the consciousness, the blueprint within us, and that pull that we have as evolutionary beings to express it more and more fully in each moment. The progressive universe, the universe itself is God mind, right? So that pull for humanity to reawaken to or realize its unity in God mind and express from that consciousness. In the next sentence where it says, birthing an era of unity consciousness. Now, do you think that means birthing an era where everybody's unity? No. Birthing an era, do you think it means birthing an era where everyone's the same? No. It's birthing an era where everyone comes from and is centered in that high and holy consciousness, that unity consciousness, aware of and centered in the consciousness that binds us all, that expresses in myriad and magnificent ways. But it's the new expression. If you've looked at any of the new thought ideas of this Birthing 2012, you see that it's not about birthing a realm of chaos and destruction. It's about birthing a quickened time period where we're more and more able, where more and more of us are conscious of our ability to co-create. And that the veil has thinned between our experience and our actualizing of that power and that faculty. It's happening all the time through people having healing demonstrations, health in mind, in body, and in spirit. Michael Berg, the author of Becoming Like God, a book on Kabbalah and ultimate destiny, said, what we think and what we do enters the global consciousness and changes it. Every time a person removes even a fragment of the desire or to receive for self alone, the increase in consciousness accrues to the global soul. Each time one of us reveals more of his or her godly nature, it influences the collective being. We are here to influence the collective being. Do we trust that we're connected? Do we trust that it makes a difference? Last week we demonstrated it. Are we demonstrating it today? Amen. We are. George Bernard Shaw says, life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. That's what we're here to do together. It's not about finding our practice. It's not about finding the world we want. It's about creating it. Namaste.